This is a fan-generated show. If you'd like to support us, please go to jamieglazov.com. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our new Rumble channel. All your support is greatly appreciated.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I'm thrilled to announce the release of my new book, Obama's True Legacy: How He Transformed America. There's a reason why Mike Huckabee calls it a ferocious and chilling read. Order it now at Amazon.com or at FrontPageMag.com. Good evening. Welcome to the Glazov Gang. Tonight, another fantastic program with two fantastic guests. Ladies and gentlemen, please remember we are a fan-generated program, so we need all the help we can get. Please go to our YouTube and Rumble channels and make sure you are subscribed and hit the instant notification button. Visit us at jamieglazov.com and subscribe to our newsletter. And also, please donate and help us out so we can keep going. And follow us on X at Jamie Glazov, on Facebook at Jamie Glazov, and most importantly, go to liveuptofreedom.com and give all your support to the one and only Annie Cyrus. What an honor to have back with us this evening Daniel Greenfield, a Shillman Fellow at the Freedom Center and the editor of The Point at FrontPageMag.com. And he is the author of the new book, Domestic Enemies: The Founding Fathers' Fight Against the Left. And also, what an honor, with us tonight, Steve Hook, podcaster. Steve, welcome to the program. Daniel, welcome to the program.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good to be with you, Jamie.
Thank you. Before we proceed, Steve, tell us a little bit about yourself, because our audience might not be too familiar with you.
Well, they may not be familiar with me yet, but hopefully they'll get to know me real soon, because starting this Sunday coming up, I believe, my co-host, Tom Del Beccaro, and I will be joining Patriot.tv. We're going to be, the name of the show is Del Beccaro and Hook's Enlightened Descent. I've been in talk radio, and now I'm dipping my foot into the podcasting world with Patriot, and I'm just thrilled to do it. And it's good to be with you tonight, and it's great to see Daniel as well. So
fantastic. What an honor to have both of you here. I was biting my nails all night the other night, and I ended up crying tears of joy when Trump came out to give his victory speech. What a moment. Daniel, let's begin with you. What happened?
Well, Kamala did say joy cometh in the morning. We certainly saw that. But what happened was that a whole lot of Americans were told that they would be sexist, racist, or racist, sexist if they didn't vote for Kamala. And they didn't tell the posters they were voting for Kamala. Maybe they didn't even tell their significant others they were voting for Kamala. In fact, what they did was they turned around and they voted for Trump. They just didn't tell anybody about it. And we saw the effects at the polls. And the posters certainly didn't record that. They didn't register that. They're calling these people shy Trump voters. They're not shy Trump voters. What they did was they defied the media. They defied all the people who had been telling them that they were Hitler if they actually voted for Trump. And they went ahead and did it in the privacy of the voting booth. And that is what we saw to an incredible degree. We also saw a complete rejection of the last 4 years of the Biden-Harris agenda. We saw rejection of equity. We saw a rejection of the idea that American decline is something we had to accept. They went for President Trump's vision, a vision of progress, a vision of actually making America great again. And the media is driving themselves crazy over it, but there's nothing they can do about it.
Thank you, Daniel. Steve, how did you see it?
Well, I much like Daniel, Daniel laid it out pretty good. I would say it was also, if I would add one thing, I would say it was also a complete repudiation of the mainstream media. It was a complete repudiation of Hollywood and rock and roll stars telling us who to vote for. Those days are long gone. When I look at this election, a couple of things really jump out at me. For one, you got the Amish in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, who are notoriously gun shy when it comes to turning out to vote. They voted in droves. And then take a look at what happened in Dearborn, Michigan. Who would have thunk that? Dearborn, Michigan, 69% for Trump, 69. That completely reverses. I think Biden got 61, 62% back in 22, a complete reversal in Dearborn, Michigan. And I remember when Trump went there the night or two before the election, I'm like, what the hell is he doing in Dearborn? Well, now we know what he was doing in Dearborn. He won it. It was crazy. It's wonderful to see.
Absolutely. Thank you, Steve. the way that Hillary didn't come out that evening when she lost, the way that Kamala didn't come out, I think there's something a bit significant there. Just total lack of grace, lack of class. But we hear some murmurs, we hear some whisperings from inside the campaign that perhaps there was perhaps some temper tantrums thrown, or somebody's hysterical or can't come out. We don't know exactly what's true, but I think it's quite significant how Kamala, just like Hillary, didn't come out and sent out a representative to see, we'll see you in the morning. Daniel, what do we read into there?
I remember in 2016, Hillary Clinton was too busy planning her fireworks to recognize what had happened. I don't think Kamala was prepared to lose. She's never actually had a competitive election in her life. The last time she was in the primary, she was forced to drop out and she could not register what had happened. Of course, she blamed racism and sexism. So this time around, they're blaming racism and sexism because they really can't come to terms with the idea that people reject what they stand for, and they try to just, demonize those people, accuse those people, denounce those people. But meanwhile, they themselves are ridiculously fragile. We see Harvard students who can't come to class because, well, the election. You see all these crying fests in corporate offices by people who are quite important because, again, they can't. They've been getting participation trophies all their lives. They can't actually cope with the idea that the public would reject them, that they actually ran a bad campaign, which is what happened there.
Absolutely, but also something about character. Steve, how do you see it?
Well, listen, I think that at this point, when Democrats kind of do the post-mortem on this election, they're going to have to come to grips with something that they've never had to come to grips with before, and that is the Black and Hispanic vote is no longer just a block. They don't know how to go that way. They did not see it coming. I saw the Reverend Al Sharpton on MSNBC saying, well, we need to accept the fact that some of these Black and Hispanics are misogynist. They even tried to say that some of them are racist. I'm with Daniel. They don't know. This hit them like such a broadside. And I think that what we're going to see is a total realignment. And Trump did that, to his credit. Trump did that. Trump has expanded the Republican Party. It's now the party of the working. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that it was the golf club and the the party of the Richie Rich, and now it's expanded. I think Democrats are going to have a tough time. I think the first thing they need to do is they need to take their blinders off and realize that it's not that people are a bunch of racist, misogynist, sexist, Islamophobes, transphobes. It's people rejected their policies, like Daniel said. It's and a lot of these Hispanic voters, by the way, a lot of that was the social issues. So they're going to have to do a lot of reevaluating.
Well, thank you, Steve, and you're absolutely right, both of you. It's haunting and horrifying to see the world that these leftists live in, because I went to The View and I'm watching Rachel Maddow and MSNBC, Joe Scarborough, and they can't get out of they just believe that everything is about race, everything is about gender, and they just cannot believe that Trump supporters and voters might actually be thinking of something else, or they've convinced themselves, but in fact, they're the racists because they're the ones that are, talking about race and gender, et cetera, et cetera. But look, Jimmy Kimmel was crying the other night. I'm a little bit disappointed because for me, all this doesn't end until I see Rachel Maddow cry. But so I've been watching her, but she hasn't broken down in tears yet. She's just on the verge, but I really want to see that, to be honest with you. But look, we've got a complete leftist meltdown. It's very evident that they think that they are entitled to power, and they can't handle it when their political opponents have power. And then they start making threats. So one thing I want to get to is this mass psychosis. We're seeing a lot of these leftist women and their meltdowns, and they're cutting their hair now is a statement against the patriarchy. They're going to start wearing certain signs. I think it's blue ribbons, just to let each other know that they're not Trump supporters. They're also announcing that they're not going to be having sex with men or with their husbands or with their boyfriends or whoever it is, a little bit strange because they're doing that to protest not being able to have abortion, but yet they're not going to be having sex with men. It's all a little bit confusing and I would say a little bit demonic. Daniel, what do you make of this leftist feminist meltdown and the themes that I've expressed?
The left is a cult. It's been obvious all along that it's a cult, and they're engaging in rituals. They're engaging in rituals, self-harm, which is what some of them are doing. They're engaging in rituals meant to expiate, to banish things. They're engaging in rituals to set themselves aside from the rest of the country. Again, this is very much a cult, and this is what people in cults do. And for many of them, this is actually validating. They didn't necessarily want Kamala to win so much as they wanted an excuse to engage in this kind of deranged behavior. We'll see riots in the streets from those of them who are capable of it. And we'll see all sorts of dysfunctional, crazy behavior on TikTok from those who actually don't have the guts or don't have the physical makeup or the gender, if you still believe there's such a thing as women, to engage in that. So you'll have soy boys riding in the streets, and you'll have some of these women riding on TikTok.
Steve, are you absolutely horrified at the prospect of leftist feminists with piercings and lots of tattoos not having sex with men anymore? This is very frightening, right?
I don't know. It sounds like Darwinism at work here, doesn't it? It is a very, very strange thing. And, I think that a lot of this, kind of these incubation centers are at our college campuses and universities. And I really do think that I've got two daughters and they're both out of college now. I'm happy to report that they voted right and they get it. But some of these kids in these colleges, it's just like it's an incubation center. I think that we need to start looking at federal funding for some of these schools and cutting it because they are turning out anti-American, anti-capitalism, anti-white, anti-patriarchy, whatever they can wrap their heads around. And no, I'm not at all concerned about them having sex or not having sex. The funny thing is that them not having sex is kind of just they're kind of killing their own. They're throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Pardon the pun. I mean, nobody wants to have sex with them. So,
thank you, Steve. And I'm just thinking about how clever the left is. In my view, this is a spiritual war as well, and how Satan works. This is very, very fascinating how brilliant these evil forces work. Because let's just look at a very large portion of voters now in terms of leftist women. So you give women equality, you take virtue out of society, give women the right to vote, convince women that there is no God or no morals, then convince them they need to start being very promiscuous, then convince them that they need to ideally get pregnant and engage in child sacrifice. And if they're not allowed to do that, their most important right is being violated, and that's what they need to vote on. And so connecting all of those dots, it's kind of brilliant, this Marxist strategy and what it does to a very large majority of women, isn't it? And in no way in what I was saying is that I'm against female, like myself personally. I'm just saying that's their strategy. Equality is a great thing on many realms. Of course, women should have the right to vote. Of course, women should have all these rights. But if they believed in virtue and in morality, they could have a civilizing influence on society and on men. But if the Marxists brainwash a large majority of women, then they have such a large percentage of the population simply voting on the issue of abortion and throwing temper tantrums if they can't engage in child sacrifice. This is a really scary thing. Daniel, what do you think?
Well, the goal here is unhappiness. It's always been unhappiness. But how do you get people to be unhappy? Well, you offer them the lure of happiness. You offer them the promise of happiness. We got this back in the 60s and 70s with the early counterculture. You can have free love. I mean, the free love movement actually goes back to the 19th century, but never mind that for the moment. You can have this. And then we're going to create obstacles for you and attribute the obstacles to the other side. And that's really what ultimately abortion is. Of course, it's just one in a series of obstacles. The ultimate goal was to completely shatter relationships between men and women to, again, create unhappiness. If you have men and women coming together, getting married, building stable families, then they're worse recruits for the left. On the other hand, if you have people being kept apart, being kept isolated from each other, being kept resentful and unhappy, well, you have perfect recruits for revolution. And that's what they're doing. Abortion is just, again, one of those means of creating the state of unhappiness. As Steve said, a lot of this is coming out of college campuses. It's part of the pipeline for creating people who are never going to actually come together, never actually going to feel validated, never actually going to feel like I am making a useful difference. I have a family, I have a life, I am part of something greater than myself.
Steve?
Well, I completely concur. I really am just puzzled at the angst that drives them. I mean, you just have to be miserable all the time. I mean, and they're miserable about everything. I mean, it'd be one thing if they could say, okay, here's why I voted for Kamala. I have a strong opinion on women's reproductive rights. Okay, fine. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. But that's not what this is all about. This is about that. This is about capitalism. This is about, like I said, the patriarchy, whatever. And all of this is just, Daniel's right. You have to be miserable. You have to be very angry. You have to, and I just don't get that anger. I'm a happy warrior, as Reagan would say. And I also, speaking of Reagan, one thing I kept reminding myself as the election, as the ballots were starting to come in and we're starting to see the blue wall crumble. And I turned to my wife and I said, God, Ronald Reagan was right. Never underestimate the wisdom of the American people. And when you think of all the stuff that we've had to face, actors, the media, even sports anchors and athletes just bombarding us with all this, but the American people saw through all of it. And I don't think these blue-haired, angry Marxists on campuses across the fruited plain are going to make much of a difference. I just hope that it fades away quicker rather than later.
Well, I'm not sure it's going to fade away. I just think that I think it's so powerful. It's just that right now a lot of good people showed up, but that's definitely going to keep growing as the Marxist influence continues on the youth and on females and the influence they try to have on them. But Steve, you said set up the next question perfectly. In terms of mentioning, celebrities and all this stuff. So it looked like that didn't really help Kamala. It might have helped on several levels, but not to win the election. But I'm very interested in all this celebrities stuff. So Cardi B and bringing out Fat Joe and, Taylor Swift. But it didn't really work for them. And in some ways, it might be a very telling sign that the day of trying to get celebrities to back you up might not really be that effective or the smartest move. What do you think, Daniel?
I'm shocked that the Taylor Swift endorsement didn't move the needle at all. Neither did any of the other endorsements. I predicted the Taylor Swift endorsement that people were talking about would be absolutely worthless. The bottom line is people don't actually vote based on what celebrities think. The people most likely to vote based on what celebrities think are 16-year-olds, and we agree they don't actually vote. In an election where things were generally okay, maybe that would help. But in an election where people are just struggling to make ends meet, and you spend, $100 million, $200 million on all these rallies, surrounding yourself with celebrities, and the response Kamala expected, people would just fawn on her and treat her like a celebrity. The way they did for Obama, the response was just the opposite. She just looked like a nothing compared to all these celebrities. She looked small rather than bigger. And people were just generally annoyed because they were being scolded by celebrities who make millions of dollars while they themselves are trying to figure out the price of bread and the price of gas. It completely backfired, if anything.
What do you think, Steve?
I completely agree. I think that what ends up happening there is you do get the blowback. People are saying, well, gee, it's real easy for Taylor Swift, who just turned 30, or maybe she's not even, I don't know, but she's young, but she's a billionaire. How dare her tell me how to vote? She's not the one having to put food on the table. She's not having to cover my mortgage. She's got, I don't know how many houses. I think celebrity endorsements are dead, but I'll tell you what else too, Jamie. The newspaper endorsements are pretty much walking the green mile too. We saw what happened with the Washington Post. They pulled out because of Bezos. I think he was very smart. I think he saw that this isn't going to do my paper any good for the endorsement. So he pulled out. USA Today pulled out. LA Times didn't endorse. Endorsements don't mean much if the country is angry at the policies, and the country was very angry at the policies.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And look, we've got these, we got Bette Midler and Robert De Niro and Rosie O'Donnell. I can't remember exactly specifically what's each individual is threatening, but there's always this stuff about how I'm leaving the United States if Trump wins, and I'm going to do this. Bette Midler, if I'm correct, was saying she was going to drink bleach if Trump wins, and then they called her on it. I read today that apparently she's deleted her X account after everybody's trying to call her on what she said she was going to do. But what do you think about all this in terms of all these threats that these celebrities make and how they're going to leave the United States? And they just really don't end up really going to Saudi Arabia or Pakistan or anywhere else, let alone Iran. What do you think about these threats that they make about leaving? And I always wonder, like, please go, good riddance. Nobody really cares. It's just interesting how narcissistic they all are, thinking that, the whole world's going to freeze and fall into a depression if they leave. But then they never really go through with their promises. Daniel?
Promises. The only recorded reason that celebrities actually leave countries and abandon citizenship is taxes. You look at the Beatles, you look at some others, celebrities who have actually left the country. They do that because they want to pay lower taxes. No celebrity actually ever leaves the country because Bush or Trump or anybody else wins. That never actually happens. Sometimes they flee criminal prosecution. That's as far as they get. This is just empty talk, and it's empty talk from people who also berate us about the environment, yet they still have their mansions by the seaside. They have their homes in Martha's Vineyard because they don't actually walk the walk. They just talk the talk. And in all fairness, in their business, talking the talk is what you do. They're entertainers. You're not supposed to actually take them seriously, and most of the public does not take them seriously.
Thank you, Daniel. Steve?
Well, I think that what happens is these celebrities, and listen, let me just throw this out there. I worked in rock and roll radio for many, many years, and I met a lot of rock stars. I mean, you name them, I've met them or interviewed them at some point. These people live in a very insular little bubble world. Everybody around them thinks exactly like they do. Mm. Actors are probably even more so involved in this kind of thing because they're dealing with hair and makeup people. They're dealing with agents. They're dealing with, and everybody in their world, in their bubble, is a liberal. So they are completely out of touch. Mm-hmm. Same is true with rock stars. Same is no doubt true with a lot of these athletes that have been coming out kind of slapping their gums a little bit about who they endorse. But the bottom line is none of them connect to the average American people. We want to get some popcorn and watch them in a movie, but we don't much give a rip what they think about politics. And because they think just like their hairdresser or makeup person thinks, they think that, well, I make considerably more than my hairdresser, so I'm sure that I'm relating to the American people. Well, no, you're not. And I think that was abundantly clear Tuesday right around midnight.
Absolutely. I remember, I've been in a lot of worlds and realms as well, but academia was something else. And they just assume that everybody thinks like they do. And I remember, I would just be at a get together at a party, an academia, an academic graduate lounge. The lady would be putting the chips into the dip, and she doesn't know me, and she just, oh, Chomsky's really good. Oh, that Michael Moore movie was very good. And she's just eating and just telling me how great Chomsky is. And she doesn't know me, but just absolutely assumes that I like Chomsky as well. I can't imagine any of us doing that. Like when I go somewhere, I don't just start talking to a stranger about how great Thomas Sowell is. Very, very totalitarian mindset. The only way we keep going and having incredible discussions like people like Daniel and Steve is because we have some sponsors. So we're going to take a sponsor break.
Looks like you've been sleeping well.
Megan, he's back. The My Pillow guy.
And you're looking good.
Still feeling good.
Well, just when you thought it couldn't get any better, we've got the best pillow ever, My Pillow 2.0.
Wow, it's so soft. and smooth.
It's cool to the touch. How did you do that?
Well, we took MyPillow's patented fill and combined it with this new technology that we didn't have back then when I invented MyPillow to bring you the best pillow in history, MyPillow 2.0. Just like all of you, I never imagined that MyPillow could get any better. That's why I haven't changed it in nearly 20 years. Then I heard about a revolutionary new technology, and I knew I had to bring it to you all. MyPillow 2.0 is truly the next generation of MyPillow.
The MyPillow 2.0 is cooler and softer than the last MyPillow. It is so comfortable to sleep on at night. I look forward to going to bed, and I wake up well rested in the morning.
Sleep is all about temperature and height. MyPillow 2.0's patented adjustable fill is going to give you the exact individual support you need from your head to your bed. And now here's where it gets even better. We've all experienced those temperature-related sleep interruptions where you get too hot, you toss and turn, you flip your pillow over to the cool side. Well, all that's gone with my brand new MyPillow 2.0 cooling fabric that's made with temperature-regulating thread.
The best sleep just got even better. Whether you have a MyPillow or not, you need to get the brand new MyPillow 2.0. Call or go to MyPillow.com now. Use your promo code, and for a limited time when you buy one, you'll get a second one absolutely free.
You're sleeping even better.
And cooler, too.
And you're looking good.
Feeling good.
I knew you would.
Visit MyPillow.com.
And that's right. Make sure to go to MyPillow.com or MyStore.com and use promo code GG21. You can get a discount of up to 60% off on all the amazing products, and you'll be helping both Mike Lindell and the Glazov Gang. And if you like one of a kind handmade art, make sure to go to LUTFstudio.com and purchase resin art pieces made by the one and only our producer, Annie Cyrus. Use promo code GLAZOV to get special discounts, and it helps both Annie and the Glazov Gang. And we are back with podcaster Steve Hook and Shillman Fellow at the David Horowitz Freedom Center, Daniel Greenfield. Steve, we'll start with you first. How is your MyPillow doing?
Oh, it's great. I love it. I've had a MyPillow. I've got every pillow in my house is a MyPillow.
Okay. This would make a great clip for our next advertisement. And Daniel, how is your sleep going in general? And I hope you have something to do with MyPillow.
Oh, it's going a whole lot better after that election. And Mike Lindell was great. Without him, it's without him and Elon Musk, the media landscape would look so different.
Okay. This is fantastic. Look, it looks like Trump's victory is going to help him a little bit with these bizarre and ruthless totalitarian lawsuits, if that's some descriptions I can use. But now it looks like Jack Smith might be in some trouble. Mershon is rethinking whether he should keep going forward. Steve, what do you think about these lawsuits now? They're in even bigger trouble than they were before, right?
Yeah, well, I think, hey, listen, they're a problem with Jack Smith is that, for one, he's a horrible lawyer. He's been bounced from the Supreme Court multiple times. Obviously, you can't indict or charge a sitting president. He's going to be sitting president in about 70 some odd days. I think it's going to go away. I did note that, and I think it's rather amusing, that Letitia James in New York is doubling down. She's like, I'm really going to go after him. Well, good luck, Letitia. I don't think that's going to work out so well for you. But they're just gnashing their teeth and gritting the, and they're white knuckling it right now. They're freaking out. I think Merrick Garland is probably going to announce in the coming days that these lawsuits are probably going to go away. That's what I hope. That's my hope anyway.
Yeah, let's hope so. Daniel, what do you think?
These lawsuits were a tactic. I call them election interference lawsuits. They were there as part of a particular phase to create this myth that Trump is a felon, that he's a criminal, and they were hoping that would be enough for them. It's not enough for them. The tactics are now going to change. So they're going to drop those. They're not useful anymore. What they're going to do is part of what we've seen in term one, where they actually use lawfare and target every single Trump administration policy. The old lawsuits over the 2020 election are not useful anyway for a variety of reasons. reasons, because those people are not involved, at least currently, in the Trump White House. They are going to target the people who are going to be in the Trump White House with lawsuits and, more importantly, with deep state investigations. We've seen some of the stuff that they were doing in term one. We can assume they're going to start doing it again. And the Letitia James, Tantrum, and some of the others are also warning they're going to try doing this at the state level on a repeat basis. What they are going to do is they are going to throw every single possible ounce of lawfare. They're going to be hundreds of lawsuits from every targeting policies, targeting individuals, because this is what we've seen them do in term one. Total concentrated mass lawfare. Their goal is to wear you down, to drain your resources, and to distract you, because what they're now afraid of is that Trump is actually going to keep some of his promises. He's going to move on some of these agendas. So they're just now going to be preparing massive legal warfare of a kind that I think will trump anything even in the first term. Sorry, it's not so optimistic.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. Remember when Jimmy Carter, when we studied the Carter term, and in 1979, just the way the world worked, I don't think really anybody cared about Carter or was afraid of Carter. We had the Sandinista revolution in Nicaragua in 79, Soviets invade Afghanistan in 79, the revolution in Iran in 79, just a catastrophe. Then Reagan comes in, and a lot of things change after Reagan came in. Now, why I'm saying that is I see a little bit of analogy here. I don't even know if any of us really know who's even running the country right now. But I don't think any leaders in the world or any forces in the world cared about Biden, were afraid of Biden at all. Now, all of a sudden, Trump wins the election. Within 24 hours, Xi is making some interesting statements about how important it is for us to cooperate. All of a sudden, Hamas, if I'm correct, is sending signals that it might be time for a ceasefire. All of a sudden, Putin is saying that maybe it's time for peace with Ukraine. I think this is quite significant. I think when these leaders of the world think of Biden, they just kind of roll their eyes and snicker. But Trump represents something different. What do you think, Steve?
I think that, well, here's what I think. I think that when Trump was in office, we saw his foreign policy expertise, and it was probably really not so much his expertise as the people he surrounded himself, and frankly, including his son-in-law, Jared Kushner. The Abraham Accords was a huge deal. It was a huge deal that was completely underplayed by the media for obvious reasons. I think if I were a mullah in Iran, I'd be shaking in my boots right about now, and I bet they are. If I were in the House of Saud in Saudi Arabia, I'd be saying, bring on Trump and let's get the Abraham Accords kicked back into action. I think Xi's got a lot to worry about in China. His economy's on its back as it is, and Trump's already talking about tariffs. So I think that Trump has done exactly what a lot of people in the business world, even though some of them may be loath to admit it, he's done exactly what a lot of them are going to want in the end of the day, because these foreign leaders don't know what Trump is. You're right. Biden was not a fear factor for them. They weren't, or for that matter, the cabal that runs the Biden White House, whoever that may be, behind the curtain. I suspect Susan Rice, Valerie Jarrett, maybe Obama himself, but they certainly didn't fear them. Trump, that's a different animal. Trump is a straight shooter and a straight talker, and I think that there's some very, very nervous tyrants around the world right about now.
Very interesting. Very profound. Thank you, Steve. What do you think, Daniel?
Well, people ask who's running the Biden administration. Who is running most of these administrations? It's the same set of bureaucrats, political appointees, the blob in D.C. And that's why they were entirely predictable. Whether it was Biden, whether he was mentally here, whether it was not there, if Kamala had stepped in, it would be a variation of those same people. So Russia, Iran, China, various enemies, find them entirely predictable. So the Europeans, they know exactly where they are with them. These guys have been in the business for 40, 50, 60 years in some cases. They've been there. They're well known by other foreign diplomats. So there's this basic knowledge of, we know what America is going to do. If we do X, they're going to do Y. We do Y, they're going to do Z. With Trump, that goes out the window. Trump is much less predictable, and he actually takes personal initiative. Jamie, you mentioned Reagan early on. Reagan actually broke through some of this blob, some of this establishment, and began actually trying to force his own agendas through. And he had to fight it every step of the way. There's the famous story where they kept taking out the line. Mr. Gorbachev teared down this wall from his speech, and he had to keep putting it back in. And Trump has faced similar obstacles in term one. But it's very important because Trump will actually put a personal stamp on his foreign policy. He will actually make common sense decisions, right ones, wrong ones. But either way, there is actually a person in charge. And it's more challenging for some of these foreign leaders because they don't entirely know what he's going to do. It's not predictable, and that is really important. So yes, as you said, I'm sure the Iranian mullahs are nervous. I'm sure a lot of these people are nervous because for the first time, they're not dealing with the same people whose phones they hacked 20 years ago and whose communications they read every day.
Well, absolutely. And I remember, ISIS, they're just driving around in these vans and trucks and kidnapping and taking sex slaves and killing people. And then that's under Obama. And then Trump comes in and within a couple blinks of the eye, he decimates ISIS. So you gotta ask yourself, what was Obama doing that whole time? And I think we know because through work such as Robert Spencer's and Daniel Greenfield, and in our book on Obama, we know that he was enabling terrorism, and we know that Biden is very much, Obama's third term and has been enabling all these awful bad characters as well. So I want to talk about Obama here for a minute in terms of maybe what he's thinking right now, where he's at, because I was quite, worried about this upcoming election. And I think in many respects, the fix is in on many levels. The globalists have a lot of power. The leftists have a lot of power. They cheat a lot, etc. So I was thinking, man, is there any way that we can break through this? And when I saw Obama at that funeral talking to Biden, he seemed very upset about something. He seemed worried. He seemed like he was panicking. And he's usually very cool, acting cool, at his speeches and laughing and everything. And yeah, he did a little bit of that with the Eminem thing that he did. But those last few speeches he was making at some of those rallies, first of all, he looks more and more like a demon, in my opinion. There's just something so evil about him. And he's aged and he's angry. But he looked worried. He looks angry. And I want to ask you guys, I think he's got a lot to worry about. I think he's done a lot of evil things. He's done a lot of, I think, illegal things. I think he's got a lot to worry about. What do you guys think about Trump getting into power now and what might be on Obama's mind? Steve?
Oof, boy, that's a loaded question. What I'm really kind of surprised at is that the media hasn't turned the guns to figuratively speaking, obviously, to the Obamas and said, but if not for Michelle Obama, if she would have jumped in, it would have been different. There's probably an argument that could be made that it would have been different had Michelle Obama jumped in, but she did not jump in. Barack Obama did what Barack Obama does. He worked behind the scenes. I saw him at that funeral too, and you're right. He was obviously something was on his mind, and I suspect that they were looking at some internal polling, and they did not like what they saw. And I think Obama's shadow has long been cast over the Beltway and the Democratic Party and the DNC. I think that shadow got a little bit shorter, and I think that's got to be freaking them out a little bit. Like I said before, they have lost the block voting mentality of African Americans. That's gone now, at least for now. We'll see how long that lasts, but it's gone for now. And same with Hispanics. And it's just, Obama is probably nervous because he sees the coalition that he helped create kind of start to fray at the edges a little bit. And Trump has a lot to do with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Steve. And his legacy, obviously very harmed. But I think there's also a lot of secrets there and all that stuff that they did behind the scenes against Trump. And a lot of it was very questionable. And the Trump administration may now start finding out about a lot of that and maybe doing something about it. What do you think, Daniel?
Well, I hear there's a really great book about the impact of Barack Obama's True Legacy. I hear it was edited by a guy named Jamie Glazov, and people should absolutely go out there and get a copy if they want to learn more about Obama's impact. In more recent days, Obama has tried to control the process. He was very likely behind the donor coup that ousted Biden. He never really wanted Biden to replace him with Kamala, who was supposed to be Barack Obama in his skirt, and that part did not work very well at all. And no matter what Obama has tried to do to control the country after his time in office, he's really has not succeeded very well at doing it. There was this kind of terrifying, terrible era where he seemed to have a death grip on the American psyche, where he seemed to actually be able to do whatever he wanted. But that grip, that kind of evil magic has been fading. It's been fading more and more. And when we saw him there, he's telling black men that they're sexist for not being enthusiastic about Kamala. We just saw really that it's coming apart. The magician spell has been broken. People were speaking out against him, and I mean black Democrat men were speaking out against him. They were angry, and whatever he was bringing to the table just was not there anymore. The particular spell he had faded. We saw back in the day Bill Clinton seemed to be able to command crowds. It did not last very long. Obama lasted longer, but it is completely over. And yes, he's very frustrated because the man is a narcissist. We spoke about celebrities earlier. Barack Obama absolutely needs to have the sense that he is the most important person in the world. He was this kid who wanted to, above all else, he was thinking he was going to be president. He wants power. He wants to be in the spotlight. And this was really the acid test for him. Kamala banished Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton, who might have actually done more useful things, was there, speaking to a bunch of guys on a porch in Georgia. Joe Biden was banished to speaking to maybe 10, 12 people. And he actually does have some roots where he might have influenced people in Pennsylvania. He actually did have better numbers with the white working class than Kamala did, but she banished all of them. She just brought out the Obamas to make her closing argument, and the Obamas absolutely failed. Barack and Michelle Obama bombed, which means their status as kingmakers in the party, the power that they wield, that's over with.
Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Stephen. Back in the day, Andy McCarthy, Ben Shapiro wrote some books during the Obama presidency about why he should be impeached. What a case each of them made. And I don't think that those issues necessarily have gone away. And I think that some of them are on Obama's mind, and some of them may still be dealt with. Annie Cyrus, what do you think about our discussion so far and our two wonderful guests?
Absolutely a great discussion. I was actually just thinking, looking at the clock, I knew it's about time for me to join the discussion. I'm like, this is hard. There's nothing left for me to say. You guys covered it all. So let me take a moment to do what I always like to do. Number one, kudos to my fellow Americans. Thank you for waking up. Thank you for showing up. We did it. But at the end of the day, I like to say, praise Lord, because this was God's will. And to answer everyone who kept saying, why not 2020? If 2020 didn't happen, we wouldn't understand what we are being given today again. We had to go through 4 years of suffering, and I mean literally suffering, to take this opportunity serious the second time around. And remember, either we like it or not, this is it. This is one term. 4 years later, even if President Trump wanted, he couldn't run again. So take these 4 years to relearn American values, relearn who could be in the White House. Don't give in to all the options they give us every time. And we're like, well, it is what it is. There are still good leaders out there like President Trump. All we need to do is get behind them. Second thing, huge shout out to Scott Presler. This young man single-handedly really delivered Pennsylvania. And I feel like he's not getting enough credit. He should get a lot of credit. Last but not least, I just want to say we're in good shape right now, but we just won the battle. The war isn't over. Be happy, be grateful, but stay focused, keep the faith. Don't put your guard down because we have a lot of work to do.
Thank you so much, Annie. And we absolutely do have a lot of work to do. Now, just off the top of my head, I really want to see, I've been interested in this and studying this since I was 12, 13 years old. So I want to see the release of the final JFK files. I'm also very looking forward to who's going to be the press secretary, because I think that we'll have a lot of popcorn to eat during that time. I think it'll be just fantastic. I mean, just imagine if it was, a Tucker Carlson, or I don't know, just, whoever you would also suggest or think of. Steve, what are you looking forward to?
Well, I'm the reason I'm chuckling is because I'm just thinking of Tucker Carlson at the podium.
Or Alex Jones. It would just be so funny.
I love to see Tucker. Maybe Joe Rogan, for God's sakes.
Yeah.
Throw him in there every now and again. I think that I think so many apple carts have been turned over because of this election. I think Andy brought up a great point. We had to go through 4 years of basically walking in the desert before we came home and said, okay. And I'll tell you something that 4 years did. It really, really affected and we've talked about this now a couple of times, the black vote and the Hispanic vote. The past 4 years is what delivered the next 4 years. And it was the blacks and the Hispanics that turned out. And I just think that Trump is, Trump named his chief of staff, first female chief of staff, Susie Wiles or Miles or whatever. She ran a heck of a campaign for him. Now she's going to be chief of staff. I look forward to seeing all of these seats filled. Elon is going to take a big role doing cutting government waste, fraud, and abuse. God, if he does what he did at Twitter, by the end of the first month, Virginia may be red because they're going to be losing a lot of federal employees. That's for sure. I just can't wait to see all of these cabinet positions seated and see you again. Yes, the press secretary will be interesting. Maybe Daniel can do that job.
Oh, it's such a joy and relief to finally have some good guys in power instead of Bolsheviks. So we're all breathing a sigh of relief, and I'm getting the popcorn ready. Daniel?
Oh, I'm looking forward to Press Secretary Jamie Glazov. I have to nominate you for the job. And I think Annie has an important point, which is I'm in the mood to celebrate. I think we're all celebrating, but it is really important to understand we have a big battles ahead of us. It's not going to be a cakewalk. It's not the 1960s or 1970s even, when just winning an election meant you actually, and having power in Congress would actually mean you could get your agenda through. This is going to be a battle every single step of the way, and we need to be ready for that.
Fantastic. What an honor and privilege it was to have two great scholars and gentlemen on the program. Before we go, Steve Hook, why don't you tell our audience where they should be following you, and tell them a little bit about how they can support you.
Well, we're going to be Tom Del Beccaro and Tom is an interesting story. I don't know if you know of Tom, but Tom ran against Kamala Harris for that Senate seat back in the day. He lost, but that was a given. But he's a very sharp fella. He's my co-host on Enlightened Dissent. That we'll be making our debut with Patriot TV this Sunday, I believe. As far as where they can follow me, well, I'm on Twitter at RightHook1776, Right Hook, which is my last name, 1776. And then keep your eyes peeled on Patriot.tv for our show. It'll be every Sunday. At least that's what we're going to start. Who knows? Maybe we'll expand it out as we go along, but looking forward to it. And I want to thank you, Jamie, and you, Daniel. What a wonderful conversation.
Steve, what an honor to have you on the program. Thank you. And Daniel, everybody should be visiting The Point at frontpagemag.com. Everybody should be ordering Domestic Enemies at Front Page or on Amazon. What else should people be doing?
I'm on Twitter as Sultan Knish.
Okay, fantastic. Annie, why don't you give us your last 30 seconds words of wisdom for the program?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, gentlemen. Not just for tonight, but for many years that I have known all of you, the tireless effort you have put into informing the public and telling everybody what it could be if they don't do the right thing. So I appreciate all of your efforts. The last thing I'm going to say is, comes tomorrow, remember one thing. One of the mistakes we made in 2016, going into 2017, was we let President Trump do it all. He's just one man. Don't forget, he's going to need every single one of us locally in our area to fix the damage. So stay with it, support him. We're going to all support him with our MAGA hats, but in action, you need to continue fixing your local damages. And the good news is this time we're fighting with an ally in the White House.
Amen. Annie, thank you so much. Steve Hook and Daniel Greenfield, thank you so much for joining the Glazov Gang tonight.
My
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you. Good to meet you, Steve.
You as well, Daniel. Thank you so much.
What an honor. And we'll see you soon on the Glazov Gang. Good night.